Welcome to our final online live Q&A before our application deadline on Wednesday. I'm Heather Werckle. I'm the Graduate Program Advisor for the Communication Department. And with me is...
I'm Jennifer Simpson. I work with Graduate Enrollment Management Services. We're the central office, and we can help with application troubleshooting and that kind of thing.
Looks like we already have several viewers, so thank you for joining us. Hopefully you're working away on your applications, and we're here to answer any of those last-minute questions that you have, or questions that haven't been answered yet in some of our live streams that we've already held. And some of those might be related to the application itself or grad school policies. That's why we have Jennifer here today to help with that. So I see we have a couple already in, so I'm going to try to start with Gayleen's questions to honor that you asked those in advance, and we really appreciate that. So Gayleen asks, can you describe specific classes or how the program thinks about global communication challenges, communicating across languages, borders, and cultures? It's a great question. We do have a very large international student population in our program, and we've actually had students from all 7 continents. We claim that because we had a Coast Guard student who was stationed in Antarctica. So 7. They all count. But we have a number of students come from China, India. We've had some students from South America, from Mexico, from Peru, from European countries, Spain, France, from Africa, Kenya, Nigeria. So we've had lots of representation from around the world. So in the student cohort itself, there are a lot of global perspectives that happen. And then we have classes, and there's a specific class in ethnography of communication that looks at communicating across culture and how, and not just across international or global type cultures, but corporate culture or in business culture in a particular organization versus outside organizations, and how to navigate those differences. So that's one example of a class. There are other classes in kind of how social media is used across cultures, different techniques that other countries are using that we might look at as new ways of doing things. Some countries are actually far ahead of the U.S. in how they're using mobile technology. And we've also had several students participate in study abroad options, often through the iSchool, to Ghana, to Tahiti, so different countries, and looking at how communication and technology are playing out in those settings. So as a non-faculty member, that would be my answer to that. I would definitely recommend reading through our curriculum page that has course descriptions for all of our classes. You can see kind of what's covered in those. And feel free to reach out to faculty who teach those types of courses to get more information about what's involved in the content there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And definitely, I just want to throw in that one thing people love about the UW is that although we're an R1 institution, our professors do a lot of cutting-edge research. They're very accessible. The UW prizes that very highly. I believe even our university president continues to teach classes in psychology. So definitely, as a prospective applicant, feel that you can reach out to professors and speak with them. That's part of the UW experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're usually excited to hear from prospective students who are like, oh, you want to take my class, you want to be in my program. So we're happy to talk to you. And on our faculty and staff page, we have the email addresses for all of our faculty. So Kayleen has another question here. At times I'm required to travel for business. Is it possible to participate remotely in some or all of the classes? It's also very common for our students. About 60% of the students in the program are part-time students that are working full-time. So we're very used to that situation of working while you're in school. There is a rule that you can only miss 2 classes per quarter. Our classes meet once a week, so they only meet 10 times. So you can miss a maximum of 2 class sessions, and you can't miss the very first or the very last class, because in the first class, that's setting you up for the entire quarter, so you have to be at that one, and the last class is usually final presentations, so you have to be there to participate with your group for that. But you can miss up to 2. Some students have chosen to Skype in when they're on a business trip, if you happen to be free during class hours, but you're just not physically in Seattle at that time. And so that could be an option. That's always going to be up to you to coordinate with a classmate. So the instructor doesn't hold responsibility for setting up that Skype session, but you can chat with a classmate and have them, rent a camera if they need to, or just make sure to bring their laptop so they can set that up, and then you can often participate that way. So there's definitely some flexibility, but just keep in mind that 2 classes can be missed, not the first and not the last. Next question. On average, how many people apply to the Communication Digital Media program every year? We never know until the application deadline because the majority of you submit on that last day. So I can't say yet for this year. And that's fine. There is no problem with submitting on the last day, tinkering until the last minute to get everything perfect. Last year we got about 200 applications, and the year before we got about 150. So I'm hoping it doesn't go up by that same percentage again, because that would be a lot to review. But you can guess it'll be somewhere in there, 150 to 200 applications for the program. And we consider that, all together as one cohort, decide the top students, and we tend to make about 80 to 90 offers of admission per year. Because our maximum cohort size is 70. So we admit a little more than that because some of you are applying to multiple programs, and we want to make sure that we get, as many of you in as we can. There's lots of questions coming in. This is great. I know. So thank you, Lane, for that question. Catherine says, how does study abroad work within the program? So we don't actually have any of our own study abroad programs in Comm Lead, although we have had students find internships abroad, and you can get internship credit for that. It's more of an independent process. But a lot of our students have done programs through another UW department called the iSchool, so the Information School. They have graduate level study abroad. They're usually 4 to 5 week programs during the summer, so it works really well for a lot of our students that maybe can't be gone for 3 months for a traditional study abroad, but they could do a 4-week program and take vacation off work for that. So that's what most of our students that have done study abroad have done it through the iSchool. And on our website, on the our stories page, that has a few stories in there from students that have done that. So I encourage you to look those up and hear about their experiences. Lane has another question here. How is the program evaluated each year to keep up with the changing of technology and digital media in general? Our director likes to call our program permanently beta. Because things are changing so often in the field of technology and communication. And so we're constantly introducing new classes. We have our perennial favorites that are offered every year, but then each quarter has at least 1 to 3 classes that are being offered for the first time. And those are often in new technologies. There might be a VR class, because now we're looking at virtual reality and how that's being used in communication. This quarter we have a new class on project management, because more of our students have been interested in how to incorporate those skills into what they're doing. And so those kind of new courses come up all the time, and that's the way that we try to keep up to date and keep our students up to date with what they need to learn. And we're constantly recruiting new faculty. So we have a faculty recruitment page where we reach out and say, hey, do you want to teach for our program? Are you doing something in the field that would be relevant to our students, and allow people to apply and make a case for that. More. Andrew asks, how many people are accepted into the cohort? What is the typical timeline after the application deadline to notify applicants whether they were accepted or not? More basic question. This one has a clear answer. So our maximum size each year is 70, and that's across the MCDM and the MCCN. And so in order to get that number, like I said, we tend to admit 80 to 90 students in order to get that maximum cohort size of 70. This past year, the cohort was about 60 students is what we ended up with in the end. And the timeline, we hope to get decisions out around mid-March or by the end of March at the latest. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. February 1st deadline, and about 6 weeks later, you'll know. Lane has another question here. In what way does the program benefit the Seattle area? Is there a specific project that the students have done that has made a positive impact on a particular Seattle business? There are so many, I couldn't pick just one. If you haven't looked at it yet, I would definitely advise you to look at our Stories page on our website, where there's a number of videos of student projects, and some of those on there are directly related to City of Seattle or King County initiatives that students helped with. Students have worked with King County Prosecutor's Office, with local nonprofits like Seattle Science Center, Woodland Park Zoo, our Pacific Science Center, get the name right. So there have been many projects connected to local organizations, and we get a lot of nonprofits coming to us looking for help from our students, and they're often incorporated in our partner program, which I also encourage you to explore on the partner program website, on our website as well. So like I said, there's so many that I couldn't just pick one, but I would look through the Our Stories page and you'll see a number of examples of that. What kinds of professions do these graduate students pursue once they've finished the program? That also varies. We get, like I said, about 60% of our students are part-time students, so they're already working in the field, and some of those aren't looking to change jobs. They're looking to just improve what they're doing, and so they'll often keep doing what they're doing. If they're a journalist, working in public relations, marketing, those type of positions. In general, the MCDM side, some of our graduates might be working as content strategists, creative directors, marketing manager, content producer, digital media manager, communications consultant, or across the whole degree, storyteller is a job title that we see a lot. On the MCCN side, community manager, communications manager, client relations, brand manager, those types of positions, and also storytellers and communication consultants. So those are some general ideas, but we've had surgeons go through the program that are using these skills, in their hospital. We've had bartenders, we've had musicians, pretty much anyone you can think of, because again, our director says we're permanently beta. He also says every organization is a media organization. So no matter where you are, you can use these skills in what you're doing. Thank you for all of the great questions. I want to give Jennifer a chance to answer more grad school related question. So as I said, we do get a lot of international students applying to our program. Could you say a little about what the I-20 process looks like once they've been offered admission?
Sure. So UW, we're very proud to have about 20% international students in our graduate school in general. That's over 300 programs. We welcome applications from any type of student, U.S. resident, U.S. immigrant, DACA or undocumented students, international students. So definitely feel welcome to apply. If you are given an offer, for example, into one of these very interesting communications programs, and you accept that offer, you are asked to pay the enrollment confirmation deposit, around $250. Yeah. Once you do that, you're taken to it's a pre-registration page, and it has your next steps basically to prepare you for enrolling as a student. If you're an international student and you indicated you would expect an F1 student visa or a J1 exchange visitor visa, you have access to a request form. And that's so the University of Washington can give you an I-20 or DS 2019, which you can take to a U.S. embassy to apply for your student visa. As part of that, you'll upload documentation showing your financial documents, like a bank statement, maybe from yourself or a family member, or if you're getting a scholarship, a letter from your scholarship sponsor. There are numerous ways to identify your financial resources. And you'll find that on Financial Ability webpage if you search from the graduate school website. You can go ahead and look at it now to see our average estimated cost to study and live in the United States. We also encourage people to upload a scan of their passport photo page just to make sure we spell your name and everything correctly. We don't want to do anything that would hold up your visa process. So it's actually pretty easy. It's all online. You scan those documents, you upload them, and we try to get it to you within 2 weeks. There's also space for you to write your express shipping order. So yeah, if you have all your documents correct, we can get it to you quite quickly. So that's kind of an overview of the process. But if at any point you have questions, just send an email to uwgrad@uw.edu. We're happy to answer your questions.
Mm-hmm. And that all happens after someone receives an offer of admission.
That's correct.
So no need to upload anything financial.
That's correct.
Beforehand.
You won't be asked until you're given an offer. But if you want to go ahead and know what is the amount you need to demonstrate, you can see that on our UW website, financial ability requirement page now. Any U.S. school you're going to study at, you will have to demonstrate those financial resources. So
Great. And that's to protect students and make sure that they're not going to come all the way here and then not be able to afford tuition or rent or any of that.
That's always our interest, is making sure you have a good, positive student experience.
Great. Thank you. A couple more questions that have come in. So Ashley asks, if accepted, can those of us from other cities utilize access to both your alumni and Seattle Business Network in order to transition into a position in Seattle before we begin the program? So we have had a few students interested in this that are coming to Seattle from somewhere else and want to find a job right away, not after the program, but, as they're moving here. And you're welcome to subscribe. We have an email listserv where we send jobs out. And so you can, if you get that offer of admission, you can just ask, hey, I'd like to be added to this listserv, and we can add you to that so you can see any positions that are going out to our students and alumni and could apply for those. You can also sign up with the partner program if you're interested in that. It has an online form. Those are not going to be full-time positions generally. They're more temporary contract type work, but that's another option. And then I would say just reach out to us and let us know that that's what you're hoping to do, and we can help you make connections with companies in the area that might be looking for someone with your background. So we're happy to help with that. Alex asks, is it possible for students to reach out to local companies that are not already in the partner program? Absolutely. We are looking to expand our partner program all the time. We have students come to us with, wherever they work now that wants some help, or another organization that they know about. So absolutely, we're happy to hear about those. It's a great idea to refer any organization or company like that that's looking to connect with us to fill out the partner program survey so that we have all the information we need from them. And then we can match students up with any of those opportunities. But yes, we welcome new members. Mm-hmm. Okay, Sophia says, hi, I'm an international student and I would like to know if I participate in the partner program, does it count in OPT? Mm-hmm. I would normally refer this to ISS, our International Student Services, because they're the experts on employment under student visas. I don't know if you happen to know anything about that.
So OPT, I'm sure you probably know this, Sophia. OPT happens after you have finished the program, optional practical training. So I would think if you can find a partner, you probably start looking and getting commitments 3 to 4 months before you are expected to graduate from this master's program. If you find one of those partners is willing to take you on to do optional practical training after you finish your degree, you could do that as OPT. That's something that you would start building that relationship, I think, as you are going through the program, and making sure to arrange it in time so the OPT is ready, like say June, you're graduating in June, to make sure that OPT is arranged with ISS and that partner company to be ready for when you graduate. So we do have a lot of students participating in OPT at the UW.
And since you're asking about OPT, both of our degrees qualify as STEM degrees for OPT. So that gives you currently, and it changes all the time, so I don't know what it will be next year, but currently that gives you an extra 2 years of OPT. So you get a total of 3 years that you can work after you graduate, which is a great advantage for our students. Students that are in the program that are international students that have reached the point where they're eligible to work off campus, usually after 3 quarters, 3 full-time quarters. That can differ based on where you went to undergrad or what your situation is. So you definitely want to talk to International Student Services to find out when you would be eligible to work off campus. But when you are, then you can do what's called CPT, or curricular practical training, which is internship or work while you're in your degree program. So that's definitely an option that you could do with the partner program if it's an off-campus position. A lot of our partner positions are actually on campus. So the nice thing about that is you're eligible right away. So your first quarter as an international student, you can work on campus. So I would pay attention to those. If you end up coming into the program, look for the on-campus opportunities because you don't have to wait for those. So Jennifer has a question. The action section of the video submission page does not allow me to play or download my video. The page says I've completed the video section. May I assume this is correct, despite the glitch? Familiar with our video portion.
So it should be fine, but if you want us to check on something, you're welcome to email us at uwgrad@uw.edu. a common thing we would encourage you to do if you're having video problems is switch your browser. If you're using Internet Explorer, try Chrome or Firefox. Another thing, and I've just noticed this, me using a browser in general, if you have an ad blocker like Ad Blocker Plus activated, you might want to deactivate it for any time you're on the graduate school website, because it might interpret a video as a pop-up. So those would be the first things I would recommend you try. But if it shows it's completed, the video is most likely in there. But again, you're welcome to contact us at uwgrad@uw.edu about it.
And we also have a staff member who's checking all of the applications as they come in. It takes a while, so it's not going to be immediate, but she's making sure that the videos play. So we will contact you in the next week if we're not able to play your video, to let you know it's not working and ask you to send us a new file so we can upload that. So if you hear nothing from us and you check your application status page and it says your application is marked complete, then your video worked and you're good. Yeah. Let's see. Lane asks, is the workload of this program manageable with a full-time job? Absolutely, if you're a part-time student. So 10 credits is full-time at the graduate level at UW, and most of our classes are 5 credits. So a part-time student would generally just take 1 class per quarter, 1 5-credit class, and that is entirely doable with a full-time job. You can, roughly that's about 15 hours per week of in-class time, readings, assignments, writing time, all of that. So if you have 15 hours a week to spare, you can do that along with a full-time job. I would not recommend going to school full-time. You're taking 10 credits a quarter with a full-time job. We've had some students do that because of time constraints. They needed to get done more quickly, and that is something they were able to do. I don't know how much sleep they got, or I don't know how much they saw their friends or family. So full-time and full-time don't tend to go well together, but part-time and full-time works fine. Sophia has another question here. How many percentages of applicants approximately will get interview invitations? Is interview required to get admission? We do not conduct interviews. So your video that you upload, think of that as replacing an interview. So your your video file, we really look at it as like that was an interview question that we asked you, and that's your 90-second response. And that way we get a little chance to hear and see you and put a face with the application materials and get to know you a little bit. And so that's what we do in lieu of an interview, because with 200 applications, we just don't have the staff time, or we wouldn't be able to get back to you for several months if we did interviews. So we do not do interviews. Is it all right to include hyperlinks to articles or recognition in the resume? Is there some other preferred way of conveying that? Absolutely. If you have an online portfolio, that's the best way to include it, is put a link on the resume that you upload. And then the committee can look at that if they want to see your portfolio, or if you have a video that you created for a job, you could put that, like a YouTube link or a Vimeo link on there. Make sure that you put a password with it if it is password protected, so they can actually view it. But yeah, you're welcome to put that on your resume. These are all great questions.
Yeah.
I figured last minute everyone would be panicked, but these are substantial.
These are excellent questions. Yeah.
Really important things to ask.
Excellent. Okay.
So I would ask Jennifer, while you're here, in terms of, from the graduate school perspective, we get a lot of students worried about their test scores not matching up, or I sent them this date, where are they? So what general advice would you have, and this would be for our students that are non-native English speakers, because we don't require the GRE.
So the TOEFL and the IELTS.
TOEFL and IELTS.
So TOEFL, the most common thing we see is that, for example, my name is Jennifer Ruth Simpson. So if I applied with the name Jennifer Simpson, that's my graduate school application, Jennifer Simpson, but I took the TOEFL test under the name Jennifer Ruth Simpson, those names are a little different, so it's not going to match up. So if you have reported your TOEFL score, you paid TOEFL, to send the score to the University of Washington, 4854, there you go,
4854 is
and
code.
About a week passes and you're not seeing the scores, the official score show, and you can check that in your application status, and you're not seeing that those scores, it shows official scores received. You are welcome to contact us. You can reach out to Heather, let us know. And And we will look for your scores in the student database. And if it is something like, oh, I can see you had 2 different names, like, you didn't include your middle name, we'll match it up. With the IELTS English language test, we've had some real problems with the IELTS. We're actually going to stop accepting them in May 2017. May 2017, because just the problems we've had with that company. So again, if you have problems with the IELTS, you might scan a copy of your test scores, reach out to us, and if we determine there is indeed a problem, we'll let your program advisor know, like, we're working on this issue. So definitely just reach out to us. If it's with IELTS, it's more like 2 weeks. Like, you ask to have the score sent and they're still not showing up, just let us know and we'll do everything we can do to help you with that.
One key thing about that it says this on the application status page, but I know a lot of people skip right past it. Your scores won't match until about 48 hours after you submit your application.
Yes.
So if you submit your application and immediately go to check and, oh my gosh, my scores aren't there, it hasn't been 48 hours. So they won't show up yet. So please be sure to wait that 48 hours after you've submitted your application.
Yes.
To verify that they're not showing up or are showing up, because they're never going to show up immediately.
Right.
That's just how the computer systems work and the matching.
Our student database, like the rest of the government, usually only works 8 to 5 p.m. So a lot of times, especially with the TOEFL scores, the reporting works just fine. It's like Heather said, you have to wait for it to sync up. But, if you've been waiting several days and you're worried, you're always welcome to contact us and we'll help you with that. That's a uwgrad@uw.edu.
Great. So just wait that 48 hours first. That's my biggest piece of advice, because I always get emails from some of applicants saying, I just submitted and they're not showing up. Because it hasn't been 48 hours.
Yes.
So I know we live in a world of instant gratification and computer systems working perfectly right away. This is the government. The systems are a little more slow. There's batch processing that happens.
Yes.
So please be patient with that. New question has come in from Philip. It's been mentioned the program used to be primarily students with professional experience, but more recently it's been trending younger. Will an experienced student feel out of place? Not at all. We have been trending younger in that I'd say lately about maybe a fifth to a quarter of our incoming cohort has been kind of fresh out of their bachelor's degree within the past 2 years or so. But the big bulk of our student population is still kind of mid-career professionals with 3 to 7 years work experience. And then we always have a few students every year who are industry veterans, decades of experience, that are coming back to kind of retool. They did journalism before there was digital journalism or digital anything. And so coming back to learn kind of new skills and how to implement new technologies and methods into what they're doing in their practice. So I would say absolutely not. We have a breadth of experience across our cohort, and students with more experience are so valuable in class discussions because you've been there, you've been working in the industry, can say, well, this is what the book says or what this article says, but this is how we actually did it on the ground recently, and can kind of add to discussions in that way. So we have students, across the spectrum, I think most of them in that kind of mid-career area. We just don't want to discourage, brand new career people, just out of their bachelor's degree from applying, as they're welcome to.
Great question.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So we talked about video, we talked about TOEFL scores, just always an issue.
Do you want me to say anything about the minimum admissions requirements to the graduate school?
Yes, this is something that comes up, especially with students from certain countries that have 3-year bachelor's degrees. So it's a little bit about what are the graduate school's minimum admission requirements that tend to catch students.
Okay, so if you're on the graduate school webpage, that's grad.uw.edu, you'll see one of the large tabs in admissions is understanding the application requirements. And if you go there, you'll see, and I see we actually have a question about that 3.0 GPA requirement.
Directly connected.
Excellent. So those are the requirements that all programs at under the graduate school need to meet. It's degree that you hold the minimum equivalent of a 4-year bachelor's degree from an accredited school in the United States. that you have a 3.0 GPA for the last, basically like the last 2 years of your program, and that you've met English proficiency requirements. Now, as I said, the university welcomes international applicants. In my team particularly, we're used to evaluating international transcripts. So, for example, if you have earned a degree in Europe under the Bologna process, we accept those degrees. Maybe they're 3-year degrees, but we know that that is equivalent to a U.S. bachelor's degree, so that's welcome. There are other countries, though, where that may not be true. So if you are, have questions, of course, reach out to your program advisor. You can reach out to us. But these requirements are fairly firm. As far as the 3.0 GPA, right now, if a program decides to admit a student below a 3.0 GPA, and there could be good reasons for that, a petition to the dean of the graduate school is required. So, definitely double check, make sure you've computed your GPA correctly.
Only the last 2 years, not your cumulative. So it's not going to be the one that shows on your transcript.
Right. So definitely compute, make sure you've checked that correctly. But if a program does decide that they want to extend you an offer, they are going to be petitioning our dean about that one. English as well, the minimum required score is an 80 on the TOEFL. And the minimum required score on the IELTS is a 6.5.
Our program requirements are actually higher than that, though. So because we can't have students coming in who have to take academic English classes, because of the nature of our classes and how quick the program goes, you have to meet the recommended scores, which are a 92 on the TOEFL or a 7.0 on the IELTS. So we do list that on our website. But some of you who may have looked at the grad school website and not our website may not have been clear on that. So just you have to meet what the graduate school refers to as the recommended scores on those.
So anyway, did you want to answer?
And along these lines, Andrew is asking about that 3.0 GPA requirement. A couple of times we have gone through that petition process to admit someone who was below a 3.0. Most often it was a student who was much more experienced. They finished their bachelor's degree 10, 15 years ago, and obviously are at a very different place in life now, and their body of work and their everything that in their application showed that they were an outstanding applicant. So we petitioned for that. So it is possible. I would say in a lot of ways it's less likely if that's a very recent GPA. It's still possible if there were extenuating circumstances, and we encourage you to include that information either in your letter of intent, or you're welcome to attach to the back of your transcript some explanatory statement saying if something was happening that caused a low GPA that you don't feel really reflects your academic ability. So it is possible. I would say the number one thing that I see is that people actually didn't compute it for the last 2 years, and they're actually above a 3.0. So they're just looking at the cumulative GPA as below. But that last 2 years, for most of us, that was your major classes, so you were more interested, so you did better. Maybe you didn't do so well freshman year in Physics 101 at 8 a.m. Not that I'm using my specific example. But, so that's why it's that most recent 2 years that is really what they're looking at. But I would say go ahead and apply, if you find yourself just below that, because if the program decides to admit you, we can go through the petition.
Oh, there we go.
Sophia asks, I uploaded the unofficial transcript to the online system. When will I need to submit an official transcript? So, great question. We get this a lot. There's no official transcript required for the application initially. So during our admissions review, we don't require official transcripts. So please don't mail anything or have it sent. I've had some sent electronically. We don't need that during the application process. Once you're offered admission and you accept that offer, then on your I forget what the page is called, but once you accept the offer,
it's called pre-registration page now.
Pre-registration. There's all these steps that you have to complete, and one of those is sending an official transcript. So we designate as the program, we go in and say which transcript we want to see. So it might be your bachelor's transcript if that's all you have. We might want to look at the master's transcript. So we'll just check which ones we want you to submit, and that'll show up on there. And then it has instructions for sending those to the graduate school. What happens then?
Oh, great question. So Sophia, what happens is when you've accepted an offer, you see the designated transcript, for example, Fudan University or, Beijing University, and you'll see our address listed. So you're going to ask the register of that school, say in Beijing, to send your transcript and the degree statement directly from their office to our office, which is listed in the address. And we recommend express mail for international students, please. So what happens is you'll see two things. You'll be able to track that transcript status. You'll see when we receive it, it'll change to received on X date. And then you'll see another date. It's called verified. That means we've been able to review it. We've checked that it's accredited by the Ministry of Education in your home country. Everything is fine. Like once you see it change to verified, you are completely done. And the requirement, the deadline for finishing that is actually you want to do that as soon as possible, actually. But if it's delayed or something like that, we'll end up putting a hold on your registration like your second quarter at the UW. So we do understand some students are in the process of getting their final diploma, like stating that, I finished a program. That happens over the summer, so that's okay. We're not going to, penalize you your first quarter. It's your second quarter. We're expecting to see the transcript with all the grades and the diploma that states you have graduated and been conferred the degree. So that is a graduate school requirement.
And that's a great thing to point out for students that are, say, finishing in summer quarters, so you're graduating in August, the program starts in September. We realized you're probably not going to be able to have that verification by the time you need to register for classes. So you can register your first quarter without the transcript, but you'll have a hold if it's not there by the time registration starts for your second quarter.
The one exception is that if you are not a native English speaker and you're meeting English proficiency, for example, you have gone to do a degree from the University of London and you're going to use that degree to meet English requirements, we really need to get in that degree as soon as possible, because there's otherwise there'll be an English requirement on your registration. So that's the one exception.
Great point. Yeah, I forgot about those. So a couple of new questions have come in. Lane asks, what is the acceptance rate for communication and digital media program? So we have, as I said, our maximum cohort size is 70 students per year, and that's across both degrees. We don't set individual quotas or numbers for each degree. It's just a full cohort number across the two degrees. So 70 students maximum across the two. So we tend to admit 80 to 90 to get that number. And so a specific acceptance rate, it all depends on how many applications we received for that degree, which you tend to get more applications for the MCDM than the MCCN. And so it's often about 2/3 of that, 70 size is MCDM students, about 1/3 is MCCN. But we don't have specific, individual internal numbers for each one. It just depends on who the top applicants were in that year. And Jana, either way, I noticed the Comm Lead program has some classes related to UX design and program management. How is the program different from HCDE and MHCDI? I know the program you're talking about with this acronym, but I couldn't have given you the acronym, so well done. With that, that's a newer degree. So our program is primarily a strategic communication degree. So it's not a programming degree. It's not a degree where you are going to become, a programmer or, a technologist on that side of things. You're learning a little bit of UX design. You might learn a little bit of programming. You might learn a little bit of analytics and things like that in order to be able to serve as that liaison on a team, so that you know the language when you're talking to the UX designers, so that if you're collaborating on a project, you kind of know how to speak to them, you know what their world looks like, so that you can manage that work that you're doing in collaboration. But we are not primarily a technology skills program. So it's really looking at what is the strategy, what is the communication perspective on what you're doing, with the overall kind of more big picture in, how are you getting your message across, whether it's to get people to buy something, to raise awareness of a social cause, to improve communication within an organization, whatever it is. So I would say that would be kind of a main distinction between our approach to things versus those other degrees. Although we do have a number of students take a class or two in HCDE because they want a little more of that technological knowledge, and you can take up to 5 credits outside of the program. So that's a common department that students will take classes from, as well as the iSchool, take classes from them sometimes, and the Foster School of Business is also a common one where students will take their class outside the program from them. Sophia has another question. How much US dollars required for financial statement to apply for F1 visa? And are international students eligible for student loans? So I would say, there is a place on the grad school website to find that. Unfortunately, the YouTube system here doesn't let us paste links into the chat box, or I would paste that directly for you. But Jennifer might be able to guide you to where it is.
So if you're on the graduate school website, do a search for the word financial ability. You'll pull up the latest numbers. We have updated it for the 2017 cycle. Off the top of my head, since I do process these I-20 documents, I believe it's around $58,000 for a 9-month I-20. So program starting in autumn quarter and going through spring quarter. We don't estimate the whole, like if it's like a PhD program and it's 5 years, we don't make you show the whole amount. We just make you show the first 9 months. So I believe we're estimating Seattle living expenses like room and board and food is around $20,000 for those first 9 months. And then the average estimated cost for program is around $30,000 US dollars. Now that can vary. Some programs are more or less expensive, but we just use the average cost because we have over 300 graduate programs on campus. And so we can't tailor the numbers for every single program, but basically you're looking at around $58,000. And I know it's a lot of money. And I'm afraid you're not eligible for student loans because those come from the United States federal government. Now, of course, as to if you can apply for, loans in your home country, many students do that, but you would not be generally eligible for any sort of U.S. federal government loans.
Well, that's like a distinction with the financial ability, because our tuition is substantially different from those numbers. And so for the I-20 purposes, they have to go by the kind of average amount, rather than they shouldn't go into our tuition and fees page and calculate the Comm Lead specific tuition.
So for your own financial planning purposes, you want to know exactly what your program is going to ask you to pay. But so, if you show us more money, like for example, if this program is more expensive than our requirements, and you show that as part of your I-20 request form to us in your application, I mean, that's fine. Don't worry about that. But if it's
ours is considerably less.
If you're showing less than the amount that we list on our webpage, which I think is around $58,000, then we're going to, email you and say, hey, can you show us a little more? Okay. Because it has to be all in line. The U.S. embassies know what our tuition rate is. So we got to make sure everything is all, just boring, normal, everything is expected.
For your own peace of mind, though, you can look at our tuition and fees page to get an idea of actually what your cost will be. And the nice thing about that for international students is because we're a fee-based program, we have one rate that's for all students. So we don't have resident and non-resident rates. So it often ends up being a lot cheaper for non-resident students than some other programs that have differential rates. So just know that despite what you have to show, you'll be paying less than that.
Yeah.
All right. These have all been great questions so far. And I encourage all of you, if you haven't yet, to go back and watch our first 2 live Q&As where we had faculty members. We had Hanson Hossein at the first one, who's the director of the program, and then Anita Verna Crofts, who's associate director and teaches one of our core classes. And they spoke more to a lot of the class questions and curriculum questions, since they are faculty and teach in the program and are kind of more on that side of things in the program. So I'd encourage you to watch those, to look for specific questions related to the curriculum. And in all of these live Q&As, this one in probably a week or two, once it's been processed, you can open the information button, below the video, and it actually has timestamps with the questions so that you can click to the exact question that you're wanting to have answered, so you don't have to watch the full hour if you're just looking for one question that was 35 minutes in. So, which we have to thank Ilona Idlis, our content strategist, for going through and doing that work, because it's a great service for all of you. So we have about 15 minutes left. If you have any more questions, be sure to type them in the chat box. We talked about the basic requirements. And in general, with these last few days, with everyone panicking about their applications, making sure everything comes in. With the recommendations, it's my understanding that students can submit their application before all of their recommenders have submitted their application, and then they have the ability to go in and add a new one if someone gets back to them and says, I'm not going to be able to have time to do it. So the recommendations can be updated, or the designating recommenders can be updated after submission.
Yes. Yes, it can. Like sometimes, you might have asked a professor to recommend a letter, and for some reason the professor can't do it. Something's happened, and you need to change that. You can go into your application. You can withdraw if the recommendation has not been received. You can withdraw the recommendation and designate someone else even after you have paid the application fee. But what I would caution you to do, since the deadline is coming up, if that happens, you probably want to let the program know, because your application's not, if they require like three recommendations and you only have 2, your application is not actually complete. But you can definitely let the program know, hey, something happened to my professor, I'm working on my other recommendation. So it's at any UW department, that's at their discretion how they want to handle that. But as far as the way the system works, that official recommendation can be received later. Same with your TOEFL scores. Like if we're having problems trying to match your TOEFL scores, and you've paid the application, that application has been submitted, it can come in past the deadline. It'll load up into the system. But again, let your program know, I'm having some trouble with my TOEFL, I'm working on it.
Most importantly, make sure you submit your part of the application before midnight on Seattle time on February 1st. So even if there are other recommendations or scores that aren't in, don't let that stop you from submitting. Go ahead and submit your part, because if you submit late, we're not going to consider it. So submit your portion. And then I will also be very nagging towards your recommenders. If they starting February 2nd, if there's a recommendation that's still not in, I have the ability to go in the system and resend that email, and I will resend them until I get that recommendation. So we do allow a few days of grace for that, and we bug your recommenders. But do also be in touch with them to make sure they know it needs to be in by February 1st.
And by submitting, you have formally submitted when you've paid the $85 application fee. So, if you get confused, like, oh, I've been uploading all this stuff, it's in the UW system, the submission is the formal payment. So you will know when you've paid, because you're getting like a receipt, you're getting an automatic email back from the UW, you have submitted your application. So that's the critical thing to do. Make sure you're hitting that deadline by submitting and paying the application fee.
And I get people asking that too. It is by midnight. I would, don't wait until 11:59, because your clock might be different than the grad school's clock on the application. But
Seattle time, Pacific Standard Time.
Pacific time, Seattle time. So if you need to work on it, after work on Wednesday or something, that's fine. It doesn't need to be in by 5 o'clock or anything. It's by midnight.